Finestkind is a film that has an identity crisis. It wants to be a compelling drama while also being a nail-biting thriller, but unfortunately the second half of the film sends this boat sinking into the bottom of the ocean. Finestkind is directed by Brian Hegland and is about two brothers reconnecting out on the open sea as scallop fishermen. When the eldest brother Tom takes the boat into Canadian waters, the Coast Guard and the state fine them $100,000. With no way of paying off the fine, the crew turn to a world of crime by agreeing to pick up a drug shipment. When their drugs are stolen, they have to fend for their lives before the big bad gangster murders them. So I'm not gonna lie, for the first 30 to 45 minutes of this movie, I was actually kind of enjoying it. It wasn't anything special for sure, but I was interested in the main characters nonetheless. In fact, I didn't really know where the movie was going until well over an hour into the movie. This is a movie that demands your patience, as it is a slow burn. See, there's this universal rule in screenwriting that by page 30 of your script, which translates into 30 minutes, you should have the hook of your film. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but on average, most movie plots kick in at about the 30-minute mark. At some point in this movie, I said to myself, what is this movie about and where is it all going? I touched my remote and 45 minutes had passed. 45 minutes in and the film still didn't have its main plot. In fact, it wasn't until an hour into the film when I realized where the film was going. I say all this just to reiterate that this film really takes its time, and I'd argue that it takes its time to its own detriment. This film feels like two different movies squished together. The first half of the film tries to juggle many subplots. There's Charlie wanting to become a fisherman to find himself. There's Charlie and Tom reconnecting. There's a love story between Charlie and Mabel. And lastly, it covers some deep daddy issues. Then at about the halfway mark, the film turns into a crime drama. And this is where the film lost me. The second half of this film felt so different and rushed compared to the first half. In fact, I'd argue that if they just would have kept it just a fisherman drama, it probably would have been stronger. The crime aspects just felt out of place, and quite frankly, it felt clunky. I think if they would have introduced this aspect of the film sooner, it probably would have had a stronger transition. But when the film just drops this crime drama in our laps well over an hour into the film with only 45 minutes left, it just felt jarring. The acting here is mostly serviceable. Ben Foster is clearly the standout. Foster knows how to play the quiet time bomb that's ready to explode at any moment. He's been in these shoes before and he knows how to bring some weight to the character. Tommy Lee Jones is also pretty great here, and he also brings some gravitas to his role. A tough as nails and perhaps absent father. Jones and Foster's scenes together are dynamite to watch. And Jones has one of the most memorable scenes of the film, which happens at the end in a fast food joint. Jenna Ortega does what she can with what she's given, but it isn't much. And if you're watching this just for her, you'll probably come away disappointed because she's barely in it and barely has a role in the overall plot. She shows up when the film needs her to, but that's about it. Which is a bummer because her character at one point says that she wants to be something different than where she comes from. She has goals and aspirations. However, we never actually see her work towards those dreams and aspirations. In fact, if I remember correctly, I don't think there's a single scene with just her in it. It was a wasted opportunity to flesh out that character. Then there's Toby Wallace's Charlie, our protagonist. Charlie is likable enough and Wallace gives an okay performance, but overall I thought he was the weakest of the bunch. The last thing I'll say about the cast is that while watching the first half of this film, I thought to myself, I could never be a fisherman. Not because the job looks intimidating, it's because if fishermen are anything like these group of guys, I would throw myself overboard in a heartbeat. With the exception of Foster's Tom, these guys all feel like they belong in a frat house, and they annoyed the shit out of me. Tom I liked. I can hang with Tom. But the frat guys, no thank you. You won't catch me a second on a boat with those guys. One thing I'll say that I really enjoyed is that I love watching movies about professions that I know nothing about. When a film can show you a profession and all of its inner workings, it's generally interesting to watch. There is a section of this movie where we as an audience member learn how they fish. It's a fun scene to watch the crew operate on the boat and to see what it takes to do what they do. So, if anything, I did appreciate and enjoy that aspect of the film. Overall, this was just an okay watch. I don't know if I could recommend this to anyone because, like I said, you really have to be patient with this film, and I don't know how patient people will be with this story. Not to mention that I think the second half of the film squanders anything built up from the first half. But I'll leave that up to you. Maybe give it a shot, and maybe you'll like it more than I did, because, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion.